This week, we're going to talk more about 80s and the 80s in particular. We're going to focus a little bit on 80s movies and 80s athletes. Specifically, what are our top five? And I say five, but everybody at home, feel free to keep count how quickly we all shift from five to more. But top five movies and the top five athletes. So, being that we all existed and we're well aware of the 80s based on our ages, for some, they may not have existed. Well, some may not have been around. We did, but I'm just saying, what if?
Were they erased from existence?
I don't know about that, but yeah. Okay. So anyway, so let's start off right off the bat, right, and go into today's topic, which is the 80s and your favorite movies. So, Len, we're going to go with you first here.
No, I'm not going to.
Okay.
Come on, dude, just get onto it.
No,
just the top. Just
I haven't. No, no,
right on the top of your head. Come on.
No.
Wow. Why?
Because we talked about this and he's just being a dick. That's it.
Okay. Whoa. All right. So then, fine. Michael, feel free to go with your top five movies of the 80s.
So, of course,
they are.
There's so many good ones, and right off the top of my head, the first one, of course, is as a kid. It was Goonies. I love the Goonies, right? As a child, getting that kind of adventure with your friends, riding bikes, stuff like that. But I've always been into, yeah, right, sure. Of course, can't forget. I love Rocky IV, probably the best Rocky out of all of them so far, right? The fight with Ivan Drago, the Russians, the whole time frame.
I must break you.
Yeah, exactly. And then a continuation of that, of course, with the same thing, USAA versus Russia, is you had Rambo 3. I love both, Sylvester Stallone that time. And this was a toss-up. These two were both, both these movies had the same character or same actor in it. But so I had to go with first Predator and then Terminator. Those were my top of the head picks. But Predator and Terminator was a toss-up. I love both those movies. So those are my top five right now. There's the honorable mentions, of course.
Well, so you like your action films, basically, is kind of what we're getting out of that.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of, a
lot of action films. Any deep thought films you have? Maybe your honorable mentions. Is there anything that makes you actually think, like expands past action? I'm just curious.
Well, a lot of it had some stories behind it, right? Depending on what it is. When you look at Rambo and what he's going through as this military person coming back to the U.S., right? Rocky, who is going through some adversity, losing family, and what he had to deal with, right? How does he block out the pressure from what he's going through with his heartaches, with his wife saying that you shouldn't do it, all the naysayers, right? So those are some deep things in between. Like, how do you overcome those things, right? And the Terminator, when you're faced with something like that, I mean, like, Jesus, that Terminator actually gave me nightmares because I saw it when I was very young, and it haunted me for a few years actually. But yeah.
So you didn't really answer the question. You just kind of reiterated your own movies. That's fantastic. The question was, and let me
Rocky and Rambo.
No.
Hold on.
Other than what you listed.
Other than what you just listed.
I saw the look on JD's face the whole time. I'm like, he's just gonna wait. He's gonna let. I
wasn't gonna be rude. You clearly ignored. No, listen again. That's great. I'm glad you like those five movies. I don't have a problem with that. My question was, are there any other movies outside of those five?
How about out of the action genre? Totally.
No, not out of the action genre. I'm trying to see if there's anything that's not action that's a little bit more deep thought.
Oh my god!
Because those are just punch and shoot and kill. I mean, that's basically all they are.
That's a lot of fun, though. Growing up.
No, I'm not saying they're not fun. I'm just asking if you had any others. If not, the answer can be no. I'm not like pushing you to give me an answer. I was just curious, and you totally drove into. Well, let me reiterate again why I like my five. I'm like, hey, I get that, but that's not the question.
And to answer your question, I can't think of any because really I was young. I was all about action. I was all about fighting. I was all about that kind of stuff, adventures, violence at a young age. So that really drilled to me.
He's playing so much.
It does, doesn't
right?
it?
I think that's the whole point of this is we're going to see where you are if your personality kind of plays into these movies. So now I'm curious, since you're purely action based, give me two honorable mentions you have. You said you had a couple, so let me hear them.
Okay, honorable mentions: the Transformers movie. God, you can't forget that as a kid.
I was going to say that.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, can't forget that. Indiana Jones.
Interesting. Okay.
Which one? The first one, assuming.
No, I actually like the third one, the last Crusade. It was a very good one. The father and son arguments that they had, so I really like that dynamic. Shoot, God, there's so many.
No Star Wars.
It's all right. Those two were good. Len, are you ready yet, or should I go?
I've been ready, but you go ahead. I want to hear you go ahead.
Well, I'm not cutting you off, Mike.
You
You
felt
and
like
see if
it.
Len was actually ready.
So my part's done. So thanks, guys, for enjoying the show. Appreciate it.
Yeah, whatever. All right, Len, go on.
No, you go ahead and go. You go.
All right.
You always go last, so you know.
Right. My 5. Here we go. In no particular order. I just give my 5. Right. So Platoon, right? Fantastic movie. Actually, that one was just trippy. Obviously, at that one point in the scene where you see the soldier kill the other one, right? And you think they're like trying to save him, but instead it just shows how divided they were, even in sort of that military structure where there were cliques, I guess is the best way to put it, right? Where you followed one or the other. One was a hard ass, one was more of like free loving. And apparently the hard ass just hates free loving, so he killed him. So there was Platoon. The other one was, interestingly enough, Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Still love that movie. That one is being the first one that started it was great genre. It's also good because it's the sense of the whole religious aspect, bringing the Ark of the Covenant and just kind of playing in that. Interesting about that, though, let me just point this out real quick. You do know that in the end, Indiana actually had no impact on the overall storyline.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because they would have died anyways.
Yeah, because they were going to open it no matter what. So they were going to die. It didn't matter. The only difference is he has it and was able to take it back. I guess he manned a sub by himself going back. That's still some open holes there around how he got home with it. But still, great action movie.
There's a few open holes, but yeah.
Yeah, Harrison Ford, great movie.
Yeah.
Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. It's fantastic. Just great comedy. That was funny. A little bit of history there, too. So you can see a little theme here. History. And then the other ones I had was Chariots of Fire. I don't know if you remember Chariots of Fire.
Yeah.
Mike, do you know Chariots of Fire?
No, can't say I do.
Chariots
of Racing.
It's okay. It's about the Olympics. It's about a story, multiple stories about Olympic race runners, basically. I was going to say racers because Len said racers. Got in my head there. I guess they're racing. He's not wrong, but it's basically about sort of British runners at the time who start in college and get onto the Olympic team and their efforts to try and win and beat others and so forth. It's actually a good story. You should check it out if you've never seen it, which I'm guessing you haven't. So check it out. And then, of course, the last one is Empire Strikes Back. That one itself, I mean, I love Star Wars, so it's going to have one in here. But for the 80s, Empire Strikes Back to me is still one of the best movies because it flipped the script on the sudden change of where you find out about Luke. And if anybody doesn't know this by now, it's too bad. But that obviously Vader was Luke's father was just a total shock. It was also a bit darker, which I thought was great. And the story was really deeper on that sense too, because of from Luke's training to Han and Leia kind of sort of stepping around the relationship type thing there. And then of course, betrayal, all that good stuff. So,
and not a happy ending. I mean,
it actually wasn't a happy ending.
It was almost a cliffhanger type.
Right, you didn't know where you're going. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, I mean, for me, those are my 5. So those are my 5. I mean, I had a couple others that were in my mind that I didn't throw in there, but those are my 5. So what do you think?
It's good ones. Those are good picks. Honorables.
Yeah.
I'll just throw 2 out there. Tron being one. Just love Tron. That's a great movie. And then the only other one I was thinking about was obviously I thought about Return of the Jedi and others from a Star Wars standpoint, but Star Trek: The Search for Spock.
That was gonna be one of my honorable mentions as well.
I mean, that was a fantastic movie. I mean, there's a lot of good movies to your point earlier, right? For the 80s, and we could have stuck to genres. But I think in this case, let's just do an overall. Maybe another show down the road will be very specific and focus on like comedies or things like that. But
it'd be easy just to do 80s action, like Mike said. I mean, I agree with Mike. 80s was action galore. It
was absolute action galore.
Yeah. Hey, here's one more I'll give you right now, and maybe it jumps Lens, but we'll see if he has this. Bloodsport.
Gotta love it, Bloodsport. That's one of my honorables.
Surprise idea.
Yeah, it's great, fantastic movie, man. I love
it. Kickboxing.
Vision Quest.
Oh, Vision Quest, great movie. Have you seen that one yet, Mike?
No, not yet. Sorry.
So
It's
just so everybody
wrestling.
knows, we told him this like a month ago, and he
Yeah.
said he'd
It was
check it out.
not a month ago.
Yeah, it was like a month and a half.
It was a week and a half ago. 2 weeks.
It was
Maybe.
not a week and a half ago. It was a month ago.
It was 2 weeks. It was not a month ago. Get over yourself. It was 2 weeks ago.
Really? So let me
Yeah.
check back. Let's see.
Oh,
Date.
Len,
time.
what did you pick? Len,
Yeah,
what is your
Len, go on while I find this for us. Go ahead.
Number one for me would be Princess Bride.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
JD knows that was actually the theme of my wedding, so it was a major reason why I was able to con my wife into going out with me originally. So,
you were
that's
trying
a big one.
or something?
No, there's a reason. Let me go through my list, and if you want to hear the story,
Yeah.
I can give it. Definitely Goonies. I just think that's,
Yeah.
in terms of coming of age for boys, I think that's just,
Yeah. It's a classic.
and it's also like, our age. I mean, that we were that age when it came out.
Exactly.
Transformers. Just because, quick story about Transformers. I remember it came out when I think I was in 8th grade, and I went with a good friend of mine to go see it, and all the kids in it were way younger than us. So we're kind of in there feeling really self-conscious, being 14 years old. When you're 14, you think that you're like, well, I'm a big kid now, right? And so we're in there, we're starting to feel like really like, fuck, should we even came and seen this? And you remember the scene, and again, spoiler alert, but the scene where Megatron blows off what's his name? Was it Ironside? Yeah, it's Ironside's head.
Ironhide? Ironhide?
Ironhide, yeah.
Holy shit, dude. I didn't know that.
But I remember when he did that, we had that look like, because remember, I mean, for those of you who don't know,
it was the cartoon, yeah.
The cartoon before that was G-rated. I mean, nobody even got hurt. I mean, like a bruise was like, a major thing. And to have that happen in the movie theater was, to me, like, it was like almost like the reveal for Darth Vader being Luke's father. I mean, it was like one of those, holy shit. I remember looking in the theater, looking around and seeing some kids crying when that happened. They were like,
were you thoughtful, or did you start calling them names?
Oh, no. I wanted to watch. I wanted to see what else is going to happen. I mean, to me, that it was, and again, I think it was the timing when it came out. I was 14. It was like, it's. I watched that every single day growing up, and then all of a sudden to see it become PG rated or whatever was just a really big deal. Full Metal Jacket.
Oh yes,
another good one.
Another story on that one. I talked my very conservative aunt and uncle to take me to go see it, and there was some certain parts, like in the airplane when they first get to Vietnam, where he goes, "How can you shoot women and children? You don't lead them as much." And I started laughing at that. They didn't understand it, and I don't think that they appreciated the humor when I explained the joke to them. Yeah.
Why don't you explain the joke then, Len, for those who don't get
it? Just look it up.
Wow. All right, fine.
Google it. Google it.
Google it, yeah.
Google it, people. Google it.
And I'd say, like, in terms of action, it'd be Lethal Weapon. I mean, I watched that movie I don't know how many times. I mean, in terms of, like, you talk about the action movie, but the buddy cop genre that they had, or not just buddy cop, I mean, it
good
went
cop,
from
bad cop kind of thing, right? Yeah.
Or even 48 Hours, where it wasn't good cop, bad cop. It was two bad people, basically. I mean, even though one was a cop, I mean, but I mean, I think that whole relationship that those had, with the opposing people, and the relationship, how they grew up, and then like Beverly Hills Cop had a little bit of that as well. So yeah, that's my 5, and I think Blade Runner was like honorable mention. I think Blade Runner would be one of my top ones. I mean, I think it's one of those ones where I didn't understand it fully when I was younger, and then as I got older, the meaning of the movie changed. But I think it was just one of those things that whole fantasy, futuristic.
I'd call that one of the deep sci-fi movies. Like,
exactly, yeah,
really deep as a sci-fi. You have to really get it, because this is for diehard sci-fi. I mean, not just your glossary type sci-fi fans,
right,
like Star Wars and everything. This is for people who truly love sci-fi. You're right. I mean, when the new Blade Runner came out a few years ago, I mean, it was a good follow-up, But yeah, I mean, the first one's still the best one. That's a good call.
But it grew on me. I mean, it's one of those ones that as I got older, I enjoyed the imagery and everything that it did in the first one. You know, like the idea that languages started to combine in certain areas and blah blah blah, how things started to evolve. But as I understood the meaning of it more and more, I liked it even more and more.
Yep. I would say where I'm disappointed in you and I, Len, specifically. How did we not pick Blues Brothers? My daughter is going to be disappointed in us later because it came out in 1980. Now, granted, it's 1980, but still, the point is, Blues Brothers is a movie that Len and I have always wanted to emulate for Halloween or whatever, right? Jake and Elwood.
Did you guys ever do that?
No. I just said we wanted to.
And to make a quick point, if she ends up watching this, it has very little to do at this point in our lives. It has very little to do about the movie or ever. We're never going to dress up. If we didn't dress up in our 20s when we lived right next to each other, there's no fucking way we're going to do it now. But to me, it's still about, you know, our friendship and our relationship that we've had for 30 years. That, you know, it means something more to me than just the whole idea of the movie and the wearing the costume. I mean, it's a tie that we have together. So just so that she knows that I know that we're never going to wear it, never going to do it, and it never was a point. Like I said, if we didn't do it 30 years ago when we were in our 20s, we're definitely never going to do it now.
Yep.
But yeah,
never say never.
But I think Blues Brothers is one of those ones that it's those cult ones that, like, if you see it on TBS or like, remember, like you would see it like aired on broadcast TV or not maybe broadcast, but you know what I mean, like one of those movie ones where you will sit through the commercials, the 800 commercials that they would have in between it, because you're like, I want to watch this. You know, if you didn't have it on, you'd end up watching it and like waiting through the commercials just to finish watching it. But yeah, definitely that'll be one of those top ones though.
Nice.
Now, what about like the John Hughes coming of age ones? Which ones would you guys pick?
I mean, to me, 16 Candles, right? And to me, that's the one that I would say out of all of them. I mean, he did so many. Ferris Bueller, others. He did. Oh my God, Breakfast Club, right? That one, by the way, that I'd say that one actually, I'd probably put it the same level as 16 Candles. It's probably one or the other, but I'm gonna go with 16 Candles.
I'll go with Ferris Bueller.
I just like the comedy. I like the comedy the different actors brought into it. Yeah. Michael Anthony Hall was fantastic as the nerd. You know, doing that was just funny. They had a lot of good one-liners in that one, which was fantastic.
Oh my God.
Molly Ringwald.
Oh my God, yeah. There's so many good ones. Weird Science.
Yeah, well, for me, one that we didn't bring up that is another great 80s comedy. And again, we can spend time doing genre, so I'm not going to too deep, but I'm going to throw this one last out, is Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Phoebe Cates.
Phoebe Cates. We're done. Right? That's it. Right? We're done. The pool scene. We're done.
That's it.
Now, the ones I didn't like, I wasn't the biggest fan like of Pretty in Pink.
Sure.
Like Ducky, okay. I fucking thought I hated him. I fucking hated Ducky. I thought he was the type of guy that you were like, I mean, today he'd be known as a simp or, you know, stalker or whatever, but I didn't. I hated Ducky. I couldn't really get into that movie because of that. But like one of the ones that I've always loved was Some Kind of Wonderful.
You know what's interesting that one. Listening to the topics that we put for the movies, none of us picked any horror movies.
I was never big into them.
Yeah, I watched them all.
Weird, they were right? Stupid. I mean, we did, right? They were just not like.
No. I do have one. The Shining.
Oh yeah.
I saw it and it's like 81 or something like that. It was really early 80s, but like Shining
was it
a thriller I could do, but like Freddy Krueger, I never got into.
That's what I'm thinking. So a thriller is different than a horror.
I agree.
There's a difference with that, right? And so, like,
well, I would say Nightmare on Elm Street. To your point, Mike. Right? To me, and the reason why is because the scene where he wraps his hand around his head while he's laying in the bed, through, and then suddenly a pool of blood is shooting up onto the ceiling. Well, you figure it's 84. If you actually watched it at that time, now, granted, now that I'm older, that's why I said I don't really care as much. But you're right, Mike. I mean, it's the horror concept is that was the one that I would say. But anyway, sorry, Mike. I completely cut you off, which is just rude. Go on.
Normal. I'm used to it.
Right. True.
I just want to point out Mike's wearing all dark again today. Go on.
But yeah, anyway, so yeah, that was the end of my thought. We didn't pick any horror stuff, but
You
yeah,
know,
you're right.
Sorry.
but again, like with Freddy Krueger, it probably wasn't until I got older that I thought that the concept of it was
Just
really
the nightmare stuff, right?
Yeah, like they
Yeah.
didn't want to go to sleep, like But yeah, I was never really into horror movies. I mean,
I mean, I would watch it, but it would not give me, I wouldn't get that terror, that feel like, oh my god, this that
No.
kind of thing. It
yeah,
really
because
didn't.
it'd be like The Shining. Carrie was one that, like, I don't know, I don't think that was 80s, but like Carrie, I did
No,
not
it
want to
wasn't.
walk past. Like, I remember leaving somebody's house,
Oh,
and
Christine.
exactly, those thrillers get me way more than horror movies did.
Yeah.
The Stephen King type ones.
But weren't Stephen King's
Cemetery.
considered? I mean, I guess you're right. They are thrillers, right? Because they're not really horror. I mean, they're always death, right? Death follows everywhere, and
Yeah,
something's out there
right.
killing them. Cujo, still the cat eating scene is the most trippiest thing I've ever seen in a movie.
Yeah.
The Cujo dog was crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so you're right. There's a lot of things we can go into. So let's all right. Now that we've talked through this enough, let's flip the script to something different for the 80s. All right, now we're going to change it up. This time we're going to talk about our top 5 greatest athletes of the 80s. Okay, so this time, Len, we're going to have you go first, or I can go first. You tell me. All right, you
I'll
ready?
go.
Okay, if Len's ready, we're going to go. All right, here we go. Go ahead, Len. What's your top 5 greatest athletes of the 80s?
Number 1, Bo Jackson.
Oof.
I mean,
Now, are these in particular, like specifically, you're saying he's the greatest of all,
no.
or-
I think
Just any
after Bo, it may be any order, but I would say Bo was.
Bo knows.
I mean, for kids that don't know the 80s, I mean,
Beast.
he
mode.
just was.
He was the first beast mode.
True.
He could. I love Barry Sanders and definitely Jim Brown, but he could have been the greatest running back in NFL history. He was so strong and fast. It just wasn't. In terms of a pure athlete, Bo Jackson might be one of the greatest of all time. I mean,
Yeah.
I do feel LeBron is definitely up there, but Bo is one of those ones where you're just like,
It's
and
Bo.
also how he played baseball too.
Right.
I mean,
he did.
base running. Remember, like when he did the run across he caught the fly ball, and then he jumped up onto the back fence and ran along it, and then came down like there's nothing. I mean, stuff like that you're like,
Super athlete.
somebody that big and strong should not have been that coordinated, and it just in terms of athlete, he's just the pinnacle.
Yeah.
Tyson.
Of course.
I mean, just
Yeah.
I know there's always the debate about who's the greatest boxer of all time, but I think growing up with him and just seeing him
He was in our era. Yeah.
destroy people, that's what we grew up with.
Mhm.
Jerry Rice, just he wasn't the type of one. Unlike Bo Jackson, you couldn't like tell just off a tape that he was better than everybody around him. But when you put him onto the field, I mean, he just was. He somehow got faster, and just his route running and just everything he did was perfect. And the other thing is that he was in such phenomenal shape that by the time fourth quarter came, he was still acting like it was the first quarter. It was like nothing to him, just to always run full speed. Hard to not to say Jordan. I mean, what Jordan did to basketball in that time was just, he changed the sport in a way that just, it's hard to quantify what he did or how much he changed the sport. I mean, the sport before that, it had its great athletes, like Kareem and everybody else, but Jordan just did things that you're just like, holy crap. I mean, he just did everything.
No, great.
The other one.
So I'm going to throw it in there. You think Jordan, though, is 90s, though? Because his first title wasn't until the 90s. In reality, was his.
But what I mean is his impact.
All in the 90s.
Right. No, his excellence. But I mean, just saying what he was doing when he first stepped on, what he did in North Carolina.
Yeah.
That even in that, when he was on the Olympic team beforehand and all that other stuff that he did in the beginning, just the athlete he was then. I think in the 90s is when he became greatest of all time.
Yeah, that's when he stepped into that.
But I would say as an athlete, I mean, it's hard not to have him in that conversation.
No.
And then I would say Nolan Ryan.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah.
I mean, it just, I remember, it was like I watched baseball in the 80s, and when you just saw him
Is that
pitch,
the last time you watched baseball? Is that what you're saying?
I really stopped watching around 2000. Well, probably after I had kids. I just didn't have time to sit down and watch 3 fucking hours worth of baseball.
I thought you were going to say after
kid.
the Indians blew the World Series in Game 7.
Ah, fuck! I was used to Cleveland blowing shit by that time.
Fair enough.
But I've always loved pitchers. I'll take pitching over. Like I would say, like my favorite baseball players are all pitchers. I think pitchers are just the idea of what they can do. Like a Greg Maddux. I mean, Maddux is probably my favorite baseball player of all time, just because he wasn't the greatest athlete, but anyway, I mean he's 90s, but yeah, Nolan Ryan just because of what he could do. And then honorable mentions would be Gretzky, just because he had more assists than people had, like total assists and points as a hockey player. And then adding a woman in, FloJo. I mean, she was like, I think, in terms of women when you look at female athletes, I think she was like the first one that brought a major feminine touch to it that I think a lot of girls can, look up to instead of, because a lot of there was a lot of, I think people would look at like female athletes before in the 70s and so on and think of, not the most feminine, just to be honest. And I think, not only was she a great athlete in what she did in the Olympics, but also she had a flair, with her nails and her hair and everything. It showed that she was actually a woman, not just an athlete. So yeah.
Nice.
Okay. I have some thoughts, but let's go on, Michael. You go ahead there, pal. How about your five?
Not too far off, right? So for me, first one it has to be Mike Tyson. Just love his style, his ferociousness. He was just a boxer. He just came in there and just did his job, straight killer. And I loved the way he was, his mentality when he was when he was young and just becoming who he was. Unfortunately, when he lost his mentor and his coach, that changed everything. But for me, I just love his style of boxing. It was just never seen before for a guy who's 5'10", 220, who could move like that, just like Bo Jackson, right? So those two for me, right there, Bo Jackson's number 2, right? Len said it all. I don't have to add anything to that. Bo Jackson, bar none, probably one of the best athletes ever to bless this earth. My number 3, can't forget, of course, Len said it too, Jerry Rice. For me, his work ethic was unbelievable and correct. I mean, he ended the game like he started, 100% every single time, made no excuses, just performed. And his partner, which is number 4 for me, is Joe Montana. Guy was brilliant very fragile, but guy had a cannon for an arm.
How did he last in the 80s?
First of all, I don't know if he was that fragile. Some of those hits.
Well, he was tiny.
Crazy.
Oh, no, he wasn't big. No.
He was 6'2". He's not a small guy.
Yeah, but he weighed like 180 pounds. He was.
He weighed like 205. Look at his stats. That's fine.
He was not fucking 205.
Yeah, he was.
There was no. Look at his legs.
Maybe 190.
190. He was 190.
Okay.
Dude, you see, but man.
The point is, when Jim Burke came up the middle and just clocked him back 5 yards, first of all, that's horrible offensive line coverage right there.
Right.
And you're right, Mike. I mean, sure, he's not the most.
I don't know how he didn't die.
He didn't
guy,
move.
But then no quarterback was physical.
You thought he was dead when when Jim Burke hit him. I thought he was never gonna. He was dead. I thought he was done.
Wow.
I don't know how he survived.
No. He didn't move. I was like, oh shit, they really killed this motherfucker. It's sad.
Wow. Okay.
But I agree with Mike.
You don't want to see Joe Montana get hit like that. That's Joe.
He was slight. How about we put it that way?
Yeah, he was. But I mean, the way he would tear up defense. He would tear up defense. He just knew that's like how he was able to read an entire defense, how he's able to get the ball into just precise.
Imagine what he would do against defenses today.
Oh my God.
Yeah, exactly. First off, cornerbacks can't touch a receiver. And you can't touch the quarterback. You can't touch the quarterback. Him and Jerry Rice would be dominating the NFL right now.
It'd be insane. I mean, just those two combinations right there, right? And you can't help it. So, I mean, I love watching those two together. And believe it or not, my number 5 is actually Hulk Hogan.
Makes sense.
You know, he's in sports entertainment. He was
who you are. Yeah.
Right. I actually enjoyed Hulk Hogan for a big guy who can move, who was entertaining. And
he was entertaining.
He was entertaining.
I don't know if he was the best athlete back then.
Not the best athlete, but for me, I felt like
the entertainment part.
Right. but I love his athleticism.
He had one move.
He had some moves.
He had the leg drop.
He had the big leg drop. Jump
He
up.
had the big
his
boot.
leg
He had the big boot. He had the leg drop.
First off,
And the
You notice that all had to do with the big leg, basically.
he body
should have
slammed
stuck
Andre
with
the Giant.
Thunderlift.
But Andre jumped up into his arms. Come on.
Yeah, he did. He had to.
Yeah.
He had to hop
But
up,
still,
and so he could quickly slam him.
That's a
That's-
500-pound man, but still,
That is, he still had to hold him briefly.
Yeah,
He never
yeah.
actually got him up and over.
and had to
He
hold
just
him
got
right.
It was
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
impressive, though.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I'll give it that. I'll give it that.
Not,
He-
not Jimmy
he had-
Snuka.
I like it, Mike. I like that. I like how you threw Hulk Hogan in. Good job. That's a good one,
Not-
actually.
Come on, you didn't do your vitamins, prayers, and the training. You guys didn't do that.
No.
No, I didn't.
No.
You know why? Because
Yeah,
I was
I did.
older than you at that point and knew it was bullshit.
See, but okay. In terms of wrestlers, I would say like Bret Hart, Snuka.
Bret Hart.
I like the more technical wrestlers, the ones that actually had
Bret Hart.
skill.
But
Yeah.
see, that for me at that time, it was when I was well,
Yeah.
at that time as a kid, right? As I'm
I know.
learning,
He was entertaining, though.
You didn't like
I
King
didn't-
Kong Bundy?
No.
He had skill. Look at that weight that boy carried.
Wait, what was the guy who had
The Snake
the
Roberts.
plywood?
Oh,
Axel Dragon.
yeah. But wasn't he more like 90s? Maybe just
Yeah.
late 80s.
Oh, he was 80s. He was
Yeah.
80s.
But he was late 80s. I wouldn't say he wasn't at the beginning. Because how about George the Animal Steel?
He was all right. I like Randy Savage, the Macho Man.
Oh, yeah. Well, because of Miss Elizabeth. Stop.
Of course.
Yeah.
That's
Sting.
why. Back.
Stop it.
Sting, yeah, but I think Sting was like almost an Ultimate Warrior ripoff, or was it the other way around? I try to remember who came in first.
No,
No,
Ultimate
Warrior was
came
just-
first, and then
Right,
Sting
so
came
Sting
after.
was kind of the
Right.
ripoff, and then Sting later on in the '90s did the whole Crow theme and shit, like the dark
Yeah.
character look.
A lot of people liked it. It was good. I
No,
love
it was cool, but yeah, no, I agree. So, well, how about you got any couple honorable mentions there?
it. For honorable mentions, I did
You don't,
want to
that's
say,
fine.
of course, Jordan, and for a woman athlete was Mary Lou Retton.
Yeah.
Yeah,
She would have been my other one.
I thought she was like, wow, this woman can do some serious stuff. Like,
I
Yeah.
don't understand why you guys keep going. And here's my female selection. Just say the name, dude. I have to say it for FloJo.
No,
And, now you're doing it. It doesn't
because
matter.
in terms of greatest athletes, it's going to be
It's-
99% men.
right.
Yeah,
When
no,
you
I-
want to talk
I
about just
agree.
yeah,
especially
disagree.
especially in the 80s, right? Especially in the
Yeah.
80s. Now when you go over now, it's a different story, but right.
Sure.
And so
even now,
it's going to be, but yeah, even still, but yeah, surprisingly enough, I enjoyed watching her because what she could do on the floor was amazing, and
Yeah.
it was just phenomenal. The control, the strength she had to pull for that it was phenomenal. So,
Yeah.
so those are my picks.
Nice. Very cool. Yeah, it's interesting. I'll make this mention. I noticed, Len, you pick guys who are late 80s for the bulk of them, interestingly enough. Most of yours
Yeah.
all came in the late 80s.
probably.
No, I just think it's interesting when I'm listening to them. So you guys can listen to mine and probably come to some conclusion.
No
there.
Lakers, right?
It's too bad. No. So
Kareem.
first one is
Magic.
Joe Montana. No, I'm talking about just athletes
Okay.
of the 80s, okay?
Okay.
And I look at it from longevity of the 80s. Started in early 80s through the 80s, okay? Because at the end or just short in the beginning doesn't really fit my list per se. But that's what I'm saying. Go ahead.
No,
Go.
I didn't say anything.
So anyway, Joe Montana, number one. I think we already hit up on the reasons why. I mean,
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Yeah.
And then Wayne Gretzky was two. He dominated hockey throughout the whole 80s, even into the 90s, on all aspects, scoring, assists, everything. Greatest hockey player ever. Carl Lewis, greatest sprinter
Yeah.
Carl
in
Lewis,
Olympic
okay.
history. In my mind, he was the greatest. I always loved watching him. 84 Olympics was obviously his apex when it came to setting the records and whatnot. He was great as well. I did say Mary Lou Retton. Interestingly enough, Mike, good call there. I had her as well. She's the one that, to Len's point, there weren't a lot in the 80s you kind of remember per se from a female standpoint because
Right.
they don't get a lot of. The only time you see them is in the Olympics at
Yeah.
that time. In the
Yeah,
80s,
it's
all it
true.
was the Olympics. So FloJo, to Len's point, is a great example.
She was in a Wheaties box.
Yeah.
Hey, the only exceptions I
Sure.
think you have is tennis.
Is which one?
Tennis.
Well,
That's the
yeah.
only time
So
that you would
tennis,
see women
Sure.
was tennis.
correct.
But I mean, but
Mm.
again, even then, you had one or two. You had Martina and Chris Everett.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good job.
Those are the only ones I could. Yeah, you like that.
Yeah,
In terms
my
of
daughter
like,
will be proud.
yeah, I know.
You did
But
his
yeah, I
research.
mean, no, actually, that was purely memory, which is scary. But I mean, yeah, there weren't that many examples for women or for girls, I should say, not women, but for girls when it came to growing up in the 70s, 80s, and 90s for
Yep.
female athletes.
Very
You know,
true.
like you said, it was mainly just Olympics.
Yeah.
You're right. Tennis was the only other sport that existed that you would know of female athletes
Mhm.
in any major scale. Yeah, of course, there are female athletes in many sports, but the point is, tennis was the only one that was well known because they'd always show the men's, they'd show the women's, and even back then, obviously, they downplayed the women's compared to the men's.
Yep.
Whereas today, you'll most likely want to see Serena Williams play than you care about any of the guys because she's more exciting to watch than the guys. So it's pretty interesting how it's flipped over generations here, which is good. Oh, my fifth one is, of course, Magic Johnson, dipshit. How can you not? Magic Johnson was
How could I not?
biggest point guard ever. Biggest point guard
No.
ever. Physically, he is what I say LeBron most resembles. Is Magic Johnson from a size standpoint. But here's the thing as well. To your point about how Jordan, you said, was sort of the one who elevated. He elevated in the 90s, in my mind. In the 80s, it was Bird and Magic who brought the NBA back from the 70s. Where they
I agree with that. I don't disagree with that. True.
So they're the ones who actually saved the NBA, and Jordan just elevated it to your point later on in point.
Yeah.
So
I don't disagree with that.
So those are my 5 for 80s athletes. As far as honorable mentions went, I agree. I couldn't think of anything for baseball. To your point, Len, I tried to think of something like, is there a baseball athlete that sticks out in my mind? And there isn't one. I mean, Ricky Henderson, because he could steal bases. And it's crazy if you think about it. Back then, he stole like 130 in a single season, whereas today, if a guy gets 30, it's like fantastic, I guess. No one steals the bases anymore and even knows how to. So, I mean, I'd say Ricky Henderson is probably one who's fantastic on that level. And then for just another one that came to mind was Tony Dorsett. Loved him as a running back in the early 80s, but he kind of fell early 80s. But I do love Tony Dorsett. I thought he was a great running back. And Bo Jackson, you can't go wrong with Bo. I mean, Bo is just phenomenal. But those are mine. Those are my 5 and my couple honorable mentions. You know, it's good to see that we kind of all. I don't think there was any real matchup. Maybe a couple here and there. Obviously, the Michael Jordans, the Mary Lou Rettons, a couple others.
But I think that our only thing is, like you said earlier, is like schematics that. I don't disagree with what you said, that spanning the 80s, you know, is important. I mean, because it can easily say, you know, the whole thing against Bo is that he had such a short time span that he actually played at that level. But I mean, I even think like even Herschel Walker in terms of just pure athlete, you know, you could add it in as well. But I think it's hard because, you know, some of these athletes, they just shine so bright, you know, that and injuries back then meant a lot more than what they do today, because injuries today, no big deal. I mean, ACL 10 months later, they're 100%. But remember when an ACL meant in the 80s? An ACL meant career.
Well, how about baseball? Tommy John surgery was career ending. Whereas today, Tommy John surgery means you're probably out 6 to 8 months. You'll be back and you're healthy. And for some, they actually do that for pitchers because it helps extend their career at a certain point sometimes. Oh, and so Len went quiet on us there.
Sorry.
There we go. But so that was good. So I think that's a good list that we all went through. So I'm going to throw something unique at you guys here. Totally unprepared. I think that's the whole point here. Let's do it live.
Great. Here it goes.
All right, here we go. So I'm going to say, what are your 5, maybe not 5, give me your top 2, just the top of your head, right off the top of your head. Top 2 favorite bands of the 80s.
Ooh. 80s. Def Leppard, Van Halen.
Okay. What about you, Mike?
Oh, by the way, Van Halen with
good point. Good point. I forgot to ask. Yeah. So which one? Van Hagar or Van Halen? So
Van Hagar.
Got it.
I never liked David Lee Roth. I thought he was just he was a great showman, but his voice was horrible.
Yeah, I'll give you mine so Mike has a chance to think about it a little bit more.
Iron Maiden.
I can see it in his face. Good call, right? Iron Maiden and Journey.
Yeah.
Oh, Journey is fantastic. Just fantastic. I love Def Leppard and the others, but I'm just saying those are the top 2 off my head.
See, the thing is, I would say Journey is like my favorite band of all time, but like in the 80s, it was definitely Def Leppard. I didn't really enjoy Journey more until I got older. But I would say in that, I guess I was looking at it when in the 80s.
That's the right way to look at it.
Yeah.
That's how
No,
I
you're
would
right.
say it.
But now I would say Journey is number one. But I would say they're my number one favorite band.
Yeah.
Period. Anyway, sorry,
All right,
Mike. Go ahead.
Mike. All right, Mike. We're really excited to hear your two choices. Go.
It's gonna,
Two Live
right
Crew.
There you go. Oh, that's a good one too.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I didn't know if I could count that or not because it's not considered a band.
I said favorite bands. I mean, bands. I mean,
Are they
you know.
considered a band though?
Why wouldn't they be?
That's why I had to stop. Like that's my
Wait.
first thought,
What would you? Why wouldn't you consider them a band?
because they're a crew, Two Live Crew. I don't know.
They're a band.
Okay.
They're a band of guys hanging out.
Okay, if they're a crew, what's NWA? Don't say it.
See,
You're
that's
dark,
all,
but
when I hear band, I think of rock bands, right? I didn't think of like.
Okay, that's fine. So what do you got? What do you got?
Well, so I mean, I did listen to a lot of Two Live Crew when I was younger. So
What about Run DMC? What about Beastie Boys?
I did. That's
I-
why I don't know. That's why I don't know if you said group, but you said band. So I was like,
okay, no. Any collection of.
By the way, we helped you out by saying band because we know your personal favorite is Vanilla Ice. So go ahead and go on.
If you want to go solo artist,
Yeah, if you want to do your solo artist, feel free, buddy. Break into it. Ice, baby. Ice,
That-
ice, baby. All right, go ahead. What are your bands? We've totally avoided the conversation.
So it growing up, it was Two Live Crew, and I love the Beastie Boys. I just love their music. They're as a young person, even at that age, I don't know what it was. I mean, from Beastie Boys and Two Live Crew. I mean, that's really opposite sides of kind of a rap. But I I fell in more into rap than I did with rock bands. I did enjoy Journey and Van Halen, but I just loved rap when I was younger. So those were my crews.
Okay, so here's one more for you guys. That's a good one too, because I agree. Beastie Boys was fantastic. I loved listening to Beastie Boys. Run DMC was awesome, especially when they did the mix with Aerosmith.
Oh yeah,
So great mix up there. Yeah,
Mhm.
but I mean, Run DMC on their own was already fantastic. Okay, so what in the '80s? What is the one either song, group, or artist, whoever it is, for music that you hated the most to hear?
oh shit.
Oh,
Okay,
that
you have to go
hated
first because I got to think about this.
who you hated to hear.
Yeah, that
Here you
the
go.
song would just irritate the crap out of you, and you're like, dude, I gotta turn this off. So Blondie was mine. I just did not like Blondie at all.
I was not a fan
And
of
she
Blondie,
really
really.
means- And the reason why I didn't like Blondie is because one of her songs, and I can't remember which song it was, but one of her songs always made me feel guilty for some reason. I don't know why. There was just something about the tune, and it wasn't even anything that would make you feel guilty. It's just the tune always made me think about, shit, what did I fuck up now? Right? Oh, crap, I'm going to get in trouble. So
Wait, what song?
I don't know. I have to look it up. I can't remember what the name of the song is, but if I
But
hear it,
why would you feel guilty? Did you do something that made you?
oh yeah, I probably did, but that's not the point. That song would always be the one. Maybe it was because that song would pop up after I know I did something bad, and the association came with it. So then I hated that song. So interestingly enough, I told my mom that years ago, and she, oh Christ, I wish I'd known that. I would have played it more. That's a good point. What do you guys got? I know it's a hard one. So it's
What do you have,
whatever.
Mike? I have one, Mike, but
I don't have anything yet. I can't.
okay, mine. This was in the '80s. I've kind of, like I said, like the Journey thing. I've kind of changed. I hated Bon Jovi.
Okay, back in the 80s. Yeah,
because
at that time.
he can't sing. It was just because he was a pretty boy and girls loved him that they were popular and they had catchy songs. But for some reason, I just thought he was like the epitome of. I mean, he was like the Poison, but he just, for some reason, I never liked Bon Jovi in the '80s. It just seemed like they were just purely they were the epitome, the pinnacle of hair band, because, like I said, their songs were bubblegum rock, and he was just the pretty boy front man. I mean, like I said, he doesn't have a strong voice. Again, that's why it's like Sammy Hagar to me has like one of the perfect rock voices. I mean, in terms of maybe not metal. I mean, metal would be God, what's his name from Iron Maiden?
Bruce Dickinson.
Thank you. I knew you know that, but I mean, in terms of like power, like John Bon Jovi doesn't have any power in his voice, and it just, I thought, I'm forgetting names now. Now I remembered all those other names. I can remember, but like his guitarist had a better voice than he did.
Richie Sambora.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Sambora had a much. Thank you. God, 80. Can you tell that who had the black jean jacket in the 80s?
What? Yeah, I had the long hair. I had
He had the long hair and the
right?
black jean jacket. Yeah, but no. But I like Sambora. I thought I actually had a better voice than Bon Jovi did. But yeah, Bon Jovi was one that I didn't like.
I can't think of anything that made me feel like, oh, I got to turn this off.
Really?
So there wasn't an act. I mean, it's not that it had to make you feel sick. It's just you just didn't like hearing them.
Oh no, I didn't. I growing up,
Classical music you loved?
I would listen to all of it. That was my thing. I didn't mind.
You didn't hate Beethoven?
No.
Bach.
I would listen to it if it was playing. I would just listen to it, right? And I would just listen to it. I didn't. There was never a time I felt like, oh, today's music. Some of the rap, I'd be like, oh god, this is horrible. Now I would do that, but back then, growing up, no, I wasn't like that. I didn't mind it at all. I would listen. When it come on, I didn't stop and play it. I didn't stop doing it, push it away. But I know I was always listening to more of rap and stuff back then. So
interesting. Okay,
yeah.
So what do you remember, like? Because the 80s is when we were growing up, when we were like in our teenage. But what did your parents listen to that you remember from the 80s? Like for me, my mom was big into country, and not like old country, but 80s country, like the country that was becoming more pop country. So I hear a lot of the songs I think of my mom, and it kind of brings me back. But in the 80s, for me, like I remember like my parents, my mom, was only really playing country back then.
Go ahead, Mike.
My mom, she enjoyed pretty much anything that was there. She did love a lot of classical music that she would listen to, but her favorite was Sting. She would she would love listening to Sting. So that was her jam. So I didn't mind. I was like, this is awesome. So I like the classical music she listened to, the jazz music too. So I grew up with that stuff. So
nice. Yeah, my parents, obviously Beach Boys was a big one for them. So in the 80s, they'd be listening to their Beach Boys, Barry Manilow, Neil Diamond. Those are three right off the bat that I know they listen to. So to your point, Len, like anytime I hear those songs, obviously it just instantly brings back to my parents, right?
Mm-hmm.
Beach Boys, I think of your parents too.
Yeah, but it's those are sort of the three that right off the bat come to mind. I mean, they obviously listened to what were at the time, I guess the golden oldies at the 80s was about the 60s, whereas today that's like 60 years ago, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah,
because I feel that. Yeah, but that's a good one. Yeah, those are ones that always come to mind. And even today, I still listen to some of those songs that maybe back then I'm like, oh, this isn't that good. But now that I'm older,
you think about it differently.
Yeah, I do. There's an association to the songs that makes me more appreciative of what they are. Plus, they're actually good. Neil Diamond's good, except for the song they play in Boston for the Red Sox, which is disappointing. But aside from that,
that's like the Blondie association, though, for you.
That is
it's not the song. It's
Sweet
association.
Caroline. Sweet Caroline. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So that is what it is. But that's a good one. So I was going to say real quick. I mean, we're coming close to our time here, but I wanted to bring up one more 80s thought. Another one we can think about. And let's go to our kids. First off, as kids, what we played. But what's your favorite? And we kind of talked about this before, but now that we're doing this live, let's re-hit this one. Give me your. Let's say two, if you can do two. If you can do two. Your two favorite arcade games during the 80s, because arcades were huge back in the 80s. Sure, there were the home consoles, but I'm not talking about home consoles. I'm talking specifically going into the arcade and playing. What were sort of your two favorites at that point? And like I said, we probably talked about this before, but go ahead. How about you, Mike? You got two right off the bat?
I can't think of two. The first one that comes to my head was Rampage.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah, loved it. I played it with my brothers. Like we would just for hours. So there, right. So there are three of us that we just tear shit up. We just loved it. It was a lot of fun. You could spend a quarter there and lasted for hours.
Yeah.
Right. So that was Rampage for me for sure.
Fantastic. What about you, Len?
1943.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and
Time Pilot was the alternative to that.
Yeah,
one,
yeah.
Right?
In 1942, but I like 1943 better. It had that you had the flip and everything like that. I liked a lot of the trolling games, and there was also the one Star Wars one that I'm trying to remember, but it had the controller look like for a TIE fighter.
Yeah, Star Wars. It was just
it was Star Wars, but it had all three. It had like different scenes for different things. Like you had but but that one. God, which one? Your Kung Fu. I always love that one.
I got that on the Switch, by the way.
Yeah. You were saying that.
Yeah.
Nice.
My Switch.
I do too.
But a lot of the scrolling ones, like even the side scrollers, like the Contra type games too, that they would have
You
in
used to play Russian Attack. Of course, Len and I used to hang out all the time at the arcade, so we know each game. There's the games we always saw each other play.
But I'm forgetting all the names. I
Golden
remember
Axe,
playing them. Yeah.
Isn't it crazy how also
Golden
you
Axe.
forgot when it's over there? Oh, Golden Axe, yeah.
No. Holy shit.
Altered
what was
Beast?
the one? No.
Oh my God, Altered Beast.
four players. You were in the dungeon.
Gauntlet.
Green Elf was about to doll.
Yeah, Gauntlet.
Is it Gauntlet?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, it's Gauntlet. It's called Gauntlet. You had the yellow wizard, the warrior, the Valkyrie, and the green elf.
That was called Gauntlet?
Yeah.
Gauntlet, yeah.
Oh, and there was also I'm naming it off now, but Gauntlet was fun just because that was the one where you would have like $3 in quarters, and then all of a sudden you're like, fuck, hold on. And then you run out to get more coins. Because,
you probably got to level like 5 because it's such a coin hogging machine. All it did was there was no end.
Yeah, there was no end.
99, it would still just sit there. You'd never finish.
And then of course for JD and I, there was always John Elway football.
Oh yeah, classic game.
But not that many people know the game. But for him and I, it was just the one that we always played together.
There's always going to be those games that no one really knows, right? It's just your own specifics. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, but God, it's just so crazy that looking back in the 80s, like how many games
big arcades were.
Yeah, and how quick we forgot most of them, you know, and what they were. So.
Oh, we didn't even mention the classics: Donkey Kong, Burger Time,
Wreck-It Ralph.
Burger Time.
You know, Popeye. Remember Popeye had a game?
Oh wait, no, Tapper.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
And then they made
Especially
root beer
like your wife.
They made root beer Tapper because they didn't want to encourage alcoholism with kids because Tapper was all about a bar and serving alcohol.
Yeah.
Track
Tapper
and
was
field.
awesome.
Interesting.
Well, you were track and field.
Oh yeah, I love track and field. Sinistar was one you used to love playing a lot.
Oh
too.
yeah.
Sinistar.
See, the thing is, it played so many. Sinistar, no game would scare the shit out of you more than when he would come in and like.
Start screaming at you.
Like, you start totally panicking.
Yeah, that was crazy.
There's just so many of them. It's hard to, but you know what I never got into was pinball machines.
No.
Yeah, same here. Just couldn't do it.
Got into them.
And a lot of people enjoy them, but I couldn't do it.
Got into that. I was never. It was just something about arcades, about electronic gaming that was so appealing to me for sure. To you guys too. It seems like it. That hand-eye coordination, weird way, right? Like, I don't know.
Well, and it probably helps that we played consoles, right? So that was obviously the Atari 2600 was out during the days of the arcade, and then the original Nintendo came out around 85 or something like that. So. Yeah, that all kind of tied together. But yeah, for us, the arcade, at least Len and I went to. Although, let's not forget WWF Wrestling, Len. We'd spend...
oh, my God, that's right.
We'd actually leave school, go down to the local 7-Eleven, and play that before lunchtime. And instead, we'd spend a couple hours on that. Or we'd go to this place called Pizza and Pipes that used to exist, and our buddy Tom would be there, and the three of us would just play these wrestling games or whatever was there at the arcade.
That's right, I remember that.
But I guess my point is, there weren't any pinball machines in all the arcade machines that I went to. No. So for me, it was I never gravitated towards them because I wasn't. Really
I don't think a lot of arcade places had pinball machines. I thought you had to go.
I think you had to go to the really big places.
Yeah,
I think Foster City for us where we grew up, Foster City, Fashion Island had some pinball machines, but like Ceremony, where JD and I always went, they never had any like that.
Yeah.
Never. But yeah, pinball was just something that pinball, I think it was like the predecessor to the machines that we did because once we got into arcade machines, the thing was it was really cool because back then there was a clear cut difference in technology between arcade machines and consoles. It was the like the ones that the crossover games, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, right? You remember that game, But on the console, it was slow, clunky. The movement was whatever. But then when you got to the arcade, it was a totally different game almost. Yeah,
like Double Dragon. Oh my God.
Yeah. Well, then Street Fighter.
Oh yeah.
The king of all. Street Fighter 2 was still You could go back to the originals like the Space Invaders and all that, but Street Fighter 2 was the one that I don't think any game brought in any more money than that did. I mean, people,
completely agree. Yeah.
there was just quarters lined up on it all
Yep.
the time.
Yeah.
I will bring this full circle back to the movies. How can you not say Karate Champ? It was used in Bloodsport. Remember they fought each other playing
Yeah,
They
karate?
did. Yeah.
Yeah,
There you go.
that's right.
They did. They
God, I
did.
forgot about that.
Yeah,
Karate
bring it full
Champ.
circle. Good old Karate Champ. Just 2 controllers, 2 sticks that you use to try and move and do the kick and whatever it was.
Yeah.
I sucked at that game, so I didn't.
Yeah,
play
same
it.
here, yeah.
I didn't. It was a horrible way for me to learn martial arts. I was like, no, this is not correct. But see them do it in Bloodsport, I was like, okay, if it works, I guess.
Yeah.
But
I guess I got to try.
Yeah,
if
if
Van
Frank,
Damme can do it, I can do it.
if Frank can do it, I can do it. That's how I look at it.
Now, Mike, did you see the series Stranger Things? Have you watched that?
I've only watched 2 seasons of it.
Okay.
Okay.
I didn't get into it. I know a lot of people were telling me about it. I know my wife got, she finished it all, and because it had a lot of 80s reference to it, but for some reason I didn't gravitate to it like my wife did, and some of my siblings did too. Like they've watched all of it. I stopped.
I like the sci-fi part, but I mean, it was seeing them go to an arcade was realistic too, about how people hung out, how they did things, how. Yeah, I thought that part of it was actually pretty cool. I don't know. I just brought it up because we're talking about movies from the 80s, but this was actually like, seeing that series was actually cool. I mean, they did that. It felt like you were watching something from the 80s. First of all, when you were watching it, it didn't feel like
I do have to
it
admit
was
that,
just
right.
based on it. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, from everything, the cinematography and everything, it just felt very much like it was
really
from the
brings
80s.
you back into that feeling.
It really
of
did.
Like,
Yeah.
like, this is my genre. This is my year. Yeah, I definitely agree with that when I watched it. So it was good.
Now, Mike, did you do Dungeons and Dragons at all?
No.
Yeah.
I was not into Dungeons and Dragons for some reason. It's weird because
I almost did, but nobody around me that I knew really played it. So it was
Interestingly enough, my son Luke does it all the time on weekends with his buddies. They'll connect online and they'll play Dungeons and Dragons. Like they'll have.
But you're talking about the whole
the legitimate like
Dungeon Master?
storyline. They tell them what they're exactly.
Nice.
The Dungeon Master.
Wow.
It's they get involved.
That's really cool.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's great.
Did you see that where there's some celebrities who form a group who does that too?
I think it's on Netflix. They have a series. They showed it one.
I think that's freaking awesome
Really?
that they do that. Yeah, I think that's great.
I'm gonna butcher his name, but it's like Joe Magnello.
Yeah. He's I thought that was awesome.
Dungeon Master. He runs it with people. He has it.
Yeah.
He runs it with
Vince Vaughn did that too. I saw that. That's like that is.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome to see.
Well, I saw them
at their age.
They did that on a little play on that on Big Bang Theory.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, they kind of showed because the guys at Big Bang, they played it, but they actually showed the guy Joe, whatever his last name is, being the Dungeon Master.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. Right. Hey,
that's really cool.
Yeah, that was good stuff. All right, guys. Well, hey, we're coming up on our time. It's been a great show with you guys again, as always.
Yeah.
I hope you guys have a good weekend there.
You too.
So does everybody else.
Yeah, enjoy the week, everyone, and we'll be back next week. So
wear your masks and stay safe.
There you go. Exactly.
Yeah.
Nicely said. All right.
Like that.
Yeah, exactly. Take care, everyone. Talk to you later.